I know I've talked about fear in the past, and I'll probably talk about it again in the future, but I was recently struck by how much fear affects our daily lives. And I'm not just talking about the general population, I'm talking about the church as well, and not even in the last 12 months, but historically. And so I guess I shouldn't be surprised, as we know that do not fear or don't be afraid or don't be anxious or worry. Those are common phrases and themes and commands throughout the Bible. So it's probably there because it's something that we default to often as human beings. I remember Jesus' own words in John 14:27, and I've taught this many times, that of all the things that Jesus said he was going to leave with us, peace was the one that he said he was leaving with us. Now, obviously, through the Holy Spirit and all kinds of things, he's left us everything that we need for godliness. But he says this in John 14:27, peace is what I leave with you. It is my own peace, shalom, if you will, that I give you. I'm not saying that's the word. That's obviously an Old Testament word, but it's the understanding of this comprehensive peace. Peace is what I leave with you. It is my own peace that I give you. I do not give it as the world does. Do not be worried. Do not be upset. Do not be afraid. But as I was pondering this concept, although Jesus told us not to be, and there's, like I said, so many scriptures about not being anxious, but in everything in prayer, petition, present your request to God, and on and on and on. You could have all kinds of memory verses about it. This concept of being driven by fear instead of walking by faith, which is where I think we find ourselves many times. I had this thought that we thrive as a culture because of fear. Now, again, this isn't earth-shattering news. This is something that I think you intuitively know, if you don't obviously know, by how marketing works and how politics works. So economically, politically, fear is the greatest motivator. I'm afraid of getting this, so I'm going to buy this. I'm afraid of this happening to me, so I'm going to avoid this. I'm afraid of this happening in the future, or this is the direction this will take us, so I'm going to vote for or support or whatever I might do, because I'm more afraid than I am full of faith. I'm more afraid of something happening, or the big what ifs, or all the things that my mind can run to, than I am living by faith. Now, let me take a little bit of a side note here as to a common phrase that we've all seen or read, seen on a church sign, seen on a shirt, because we in the church are not immune to using fear as the great motivator either. We've seen this during the COVID crisis. Faith over fear. I'm not talking about that per se when I'm talking about things that we're afraid of. I'm not talking about a prideful badge that we wear because I didn't wear a mask, or I didn't lock myself, into my house, but instead I decided to lock myself in a 6x6 room with 10 complete strangers and do breathing exercises. Nobody did that. That's a joke. But the point is that presumption and putting God to the test is not faith over fear. As a matter of fact, that's something that God said don't do. We might forget that the devil took Jesus right to this holy city, had him stand on the highest point of the temple, and he said, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it's written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. That's Matthew 4:6. So if there's ever a faith over fear moment, that's it. But what was Jesus' reply? It is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test. So I don't have a lot of fear as it relates to COVID per se. And I have done a lot of annoying things, and I'm saying annoying to me, and I'm tired of them over the last 12 months. But it's not out of fear. It's really out of a deep faith that reminds me to not test God, to not presume upon God, but to use my very God-given facilities and faculties to reason and to have wisdom and to honor him, to glorify him, and to care about others in my family or around me. So, just as it is not fear over faith to use a seatbelt or a car seat, to get an annual medical examination, to lock my doors at night, to walk outside in the middle of a lightning storm, observing God's creation. Well, none of that is necessarily faith over fear. It's probably more foolishness over wisdom. And so I want to say that is not what I am talking about when I am talking about having faith today and not letting fear drive our lives. I'm talking about the fear that keeps us from moving forward into difficult or even mind-boggling actions that God might have called us to as the church. Because I hate to say it, but I think fear has driven the church more than we care to admit. Oftentimes in the church, we talk about things that we should be fearful of more than we talk about a God that we should put our faith in. We're afraid of, you can take it all the way back to whatever time you want to. We're afraid of communism, or we're afraid of socialism, or we're afraid of terrorism. It's all these isms. And when we're more afraid of other people groups, ideologies, political systems, when we're more afraid of that than having a fear of a holy God, we have problems. When we fear losing our comforts and even our freedoms more than we trust God to use us for His glory, no matter if we keep our comforts and our freedoms, we'll quickly get off mission and we'll hunker down into maintaining. So what do we fear exactly? I know I've asked this question before. Loss of control, compromise, slippery slopes. I know I've heard that plenty of times. Our broader culture is driven by fear. Fear of those that we see to be different than us. Fear of missing out, right? FOMO. Fear of crime. Again, fear of terrorism. Fear of great isms that we're going to have to fight and protect ourselves from. But in such a climate, we can easily turn to other things to place our trust in other than God. We create structures, we create systems, rules, theologies, and practices which seemingly protect us from things that are going to destroy us, or what we fear or most believe is going to upset our comfortable way of life, or the things and the way we know things to be. I don't think all of those actions are wrong. Don't get me wrong. We need good orthodoxy. We need good practice in our faith. But I think that if we let our fear drive us rather than radical, risky trust in God, who beckons us to follow Him to places that are risky and maybe even things that we would question, is this what God is saying to do? If we have fear instead of a vibrant faith that leads us, then we're going to be shaped by the values of this world rather than the Spirit of God. We're going to be shaped by a Christian subculture of fear rather than a Christian culture of faith. A place where God takes us to things that are uncomfortable, to humbly depend on Him wholeheartedly for every provision and everything that only He can do to come through for His glory. So as we celebrate, let me close this way. As we celebrate, in this case, something I will highlight, Black History Month, as a multi-ethnic church, I encourage you to let the Holy Spirit lead you by faith into relationships and into places that you might be uncomfortable. But you know God is going to use it to make you more like Jesus and to make the church more like the faith-filled church that God has called us to be. Don't allow your fear of situations or people or places cripple you from stepping in to the places God's called you to go by faith. And one of the places that He's called us to go by faith as a church is a church that is multi-ethnic, multi-generational, which means we have to step into uncomfortable places by faith and allow God to do something in us and not be driven by fear.